have the pleasure of opening this special meeting of our linguistic circle of the Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana. Allow me just to speak in English because of our guests and other extra guests and remote guests. Yeah? This meeting of the linguistic circle today is a part of the symposium devoted to Sylvie Koschak. And this symposium will go on also tomorrow for the whole day, but today's opening is with the title From Firecars to AI, Development and Prospects of Hethitology from a Technical Perspective. We have this special guest, Professor Dr. Gerfried G. W. Müller. Before we start with this guest lecture, our Marina Zorman will explain about the symposium, and then we have the honor of having greetings from our Dean of the Faculty of Arts, and also a remote opening address by Daniel Schwemer.
Dear colleagues, dear distinguished guests, dear President of the Linguistic Circle, we are now opening the symposium in the memory of our ex-colleague, the late Professor Sylvie Koschak. I am pleased, I'm honored to be able to greet here today the son of Professor Sylvie Koschak, Mr. Anton Lee Koschak, who has just helped us with this view in Zoom. As Professor Chikako Shigemori Bučar already told you, we are going to have an officially opening session to this symposium, and then Professor Müller is going to talk. But first, let me tell you a few words about Professor Gerfried Müller. He studied Assyriology, Semitic studies and economics in Heidelberg, and cuneiform studies, Semitic studies, Japanese and economic history in Hamburg. He received his PhD from the University of Heidelberg and habilitated in ancient Near Eastern studies at the University of Münster, specializing in Akkadian studies, economic and social history of the ancient Near East, historical geography, and digital infrastructure for cuneiform studies. He has also been a senior research associate and adjunct professor at the Würzburg University, held a term professorship at the Free University of Berlin, taught at the University of Cairo and at Suor Ursula Benincasa in Naples, co-founded the Heidelberg Oriental and worked as a project manager, project coordinator, or project team member on several major Hittite projects, including the Hethitische Bibliographie, Ortsnamen der Hethiter, 3D Joins und Schriftmetrologie, and Corpus der Hethitischen Festrituale. Currently, his work focuses on computerunterstützte Keilschriftanalyse and Thesaurus Linguarum Heterorum Digitalis, DLHD. Since 2001, he has been the technical director and organizer of the Hethitologie-Portal Mainz, and since 2007, he has been an expert in the IT Commission of the Academy of Science and Literature in Mainz. So this is our keynote speaker tonight, and please do allow me to tell a few words about the honoree, Professor Sylvin Kosak, and the purpose why this symposium was organized. Professor Sylvin Kosak was born in Maribor in 1942 and died in Mainz on Easter Monday 2022 at the age of 80. I think everyone who knew him would agree that he was an outstanding scholar, a wonderful father, and a great friend to many Hittite scholars. With a constantly updated online version of his Konkordanz der Hittitischen Keilschrifttafeln, he contributed immeasurably to Hethitology, bringing together an immense amount of information on all Hittite fragments excavated so far, including their inventory, publication and CTH numbers, links to photographs and autographs, joint and sketches of joint fragments, find sites, dates, and bibliographical references. The Concordance is an unparalleled reference work without which it is impossible to imagine research in Hittite philology. Sylvin devoted more than 3 decades of his life to its compilation and development, and he continued to update it until his death. Born in Slovenia, he first studied Hittite with Viktor Korošec and Bojan Čop at the University of Ljubljana. After graduating, however, he continued his studies abroad, studying and working with some of the greatest authorities on Hittite, namely Oliver Gurney in Oxford, Heinrich Otten in Marburg, and Harry Hofner and Hans Bitterkoch in Chikako. In 2015, Sylvin dropped a note to a friend saying, "Our computer specialists are ushering in a new era of tablet research. I regret that I shan't live to see much more. The development is so intense. But what a fascinating future for future generations." This note illustrates his enthusiasm for the digital transformation of Hethitology and his incredibly positive and incredibly benevolent attitude towards future in general and the future of our young generation in particular. It is in this context that the theme of this symposium was born, and now, in 2023, we are here to explore how far we have come in introducing computational methods to the study of ancient languages and literatures, and what potential benefits, challenges, and opportunities they offer. In addition to the scholarly presentations, those attending in person here in Ljubljana will have the opportunity to view an exhibition on the personalities and achievements of Slovenian Hittite scholars, and to participate in a tour of his personal library, which he has generously donated to the department, while both those attending in person and those participating online will have an opportunity to see a screening of the theatrical production of CTH 321, The Myth of Ilujanka, for which Sylvin served as a costume designer, and with which the symposium will conclude. What remains for me to do is to thank all those who made this event possible, that is, the staff and students of the Department of Comparative and General Linguistics, especially Mrs. Anna Mechle and Mr. Luka Prenkom, and to thank the Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana, which paid part of the costs of this symposium, and my family that paid the rest. I sincerely hope, and looking around, I fully trust that the fact that the Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana has contributed to the costs of the symposium can be seen as a sign that things have changed for the better compared to 1979, when Sylvain Košak initiated the process of evaluating his work and assessing his fulfillment of the conditions for the appointment to the title of Associate Professor at the University of Ljubljana. Back then, the university took 7 years to give its approval to the appointment of the outstanding, internationally renowned scholar that Sylvain was already at that time, to the title of Associate Professor. As you can see from the posters outside, Sylvain was probably not the only Slovenian Hittite scholar working under such aggravating circumstances. And I think this might have led Sylvain to conclude that in the eyes of administrative officials, we are all equally worthless. Be that as it may, I wish the symposium to be productive, and I'm happy that this symposium brought together scholars from 3 different continents. And I invite the Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy of the University of Ljubljana, Professor Dr. Mojca Schlamberger Brezar, who is a representative of Sylvain's first employer, to welcome the speaker and the audience.
Hvala lepa. Thank you. As we are in Slovenia and the law is such that we have to open the symposium in Slovene, I'll do it in Slovene and then I'll translate into English. Spoštovana predsednica lingvističnega krožka, profesorica doktorica Chikako Shigemori Bučar, spoštovana organizatorica simpozija, izredna profesorica doktorica Marina Zorman, spoštovani profesor Müller, spoštovane kolegice in kolegi, dragi gostje, dragi svojci. Lepo pozdravljeni in dobrodošli na Filozofski fakulteti, kjer poteka simpozij v spomin profesorja dr. Sylvaina Košaka z naslovom Študij starih jezikov in kultur v digitalni dobi. Z veseljem ugotavljam, koliko odličnih strokovnjakov je dala Filozofska fakulteta, tudi če niso ostali v Ljubljani, in kako lepo je, da so z alma matris Univerze v Ljubljani ohranjali stike do konca. Simpozij bo podrobneje osvetlil vlogo profesorja dr. Sylvaina Košaka, dopisnega člana SAZU, ki je sicer študiral primerjalno jezikoslovje in arheologijo na Filozofski fakulteti, že kmalu pa ga je potegnila vase hethitščina in po asistenturi na oddelku za primerjalno jezikoslovje je deloval na Univerzi v Oxfordu, v Chikagu in na Akademiji znanosti v Mainzu. Z digitalizacijo in odprtim dostopom do svojega življenjskega dela Konkordanz der hethitischen Keilschrifttafeln, konkordanca hethitskih klinopisnih tekstov, je že v zgodnji fazi digitalne zgodovine povsem spremenil način dela v hethitologiji in ker se je zavedal, kaj vse nam digitalna preobrazba omogoča, je simpozij posvečen uvajanju računalniških metod v študij starih jezikov in kultur ter razmislekom o sedanjih in prihodnjih izzivih in priložnostih za študij in raziskovalno delo na tem področju. Želim vam uspešen simpozij in veliko novih idej. Dear President, dear Symposium organizer, dear Professor, distinguished relatives and guests, welcome at the Faculty of Arts of Ljubljana University, the main Slovenian institution for humanities and language studies, where is going on the Sylvain Košak's Memorial Symposium, Ancient Studies in the Digital Era. I am pleased to discover how many excellent scientists on the world scale came from the Faculty of Arts, and even if they could not stay in Ljubljana, they kept in contact with the Ljubljana University. The symposium will illustrate the role of Professor Dr. Sylvain Košak, who was a corresponding member of the Slovene Academy of Sciences and Arts and studies comparative linguistics and archaeology on our faculty. As he was soon fascinated by Hittite language, and he has worked in Oxford, at the Chicago University, and finally at Mainz Academy of Sciences. His biggest contribution to Hittite legacy was digitalizing of his concordance, der Hethitischen Keilschrifttafeln, and making it freely accessible online at an early stage of digital history, as he set high expectations for digital transformation of cuneiform studies. Thus, the symposium will bring together scholars, both in person and remotely, who are either introducing computational methods into the study of ancient languages and cultures, or reflecting on the present and future realities of teaching, learning, and conducting research in the field of the digital era. You are invited to take a look at the exposition on Slovene Hethitology that accompanies the symposium, and to join the guided tour through the library that Professor Košak donated to the Department of Comparative and General Linguistics. I wish you a successful symposium with fruitful exchange of ideas.
Thank you, Professor Schlamberger. And now the remote welcome address by Professor Dr. Daniel Schwemer, Chair of Asian Near Eastern Studies, Department of Asian Studies, University of Würzburg, Chair of the German Oriental Society, and Director of the Hethitologie-Portal Mainz, representing Sylvia's last employer. You are kindly invited to speak, Professor Schwemer.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak this evening on this occasion, and thank you especially the colleagues in Ljubljana and the students for organizing this conference in the memory of Sylvie Košak, who was a very dear colleague whose name I knew from the time when I started working with Hittite texts, but as was already mentioned, I had the privilege of working with him more closely since 2016 to last year, when he worked to the very end of his life at the Mainz Academy. Sylvian's interest in Hittite cuneiform texts grew out of his studies in comparative philology and archaeology in Ljubljana, so it is very fitting that this conference takes place at your university. And moved by this initial interest, he moved on to Marburg, to Oxford and Chicago to work with the most eminent Hethitologists of the time. And he was given the opportunity, after being a visiting professor in Changchun in China, to work at the Mainz Academy with Heinrich Otten at the then long-term project on the publication of the Hittite cuneiform finds from Würzburg, Hatusha. And it was there in Mainz since 1986 that Sylvian, who had worked as a scholar on Hittite administrative texts, became the administrator of Hittite cuneiform texts and fragments, because one of his tasks within that research project was to compile catalogues of the almost 30,000 fragments and tablets that have been found in Würzburg, Hatusha, make records of the many joins between individual fragments, and also create a record of the bibliography for these confusing large number of cuneiform fragments. And from this grew what we now refer to, and it's been already mentioned by the previous speakers, what we as Hethitologists call the concordance, extensive inventory, comprehensive inventory of all the cuneiform fragments from the Hittite world. Nobody knew Hittite research, archaeological research, better than Sylvine, who worked over many years through every single work published on Hittite cuneiform texts, and made the notes in his concordance, which then became available to the whole community. And every Hittitologist during Sylvine's lifetime, and just the same today, works every day with Sylvine's work, and every Hittitologist's work is based on what Sylvine provided us with. We had Gerfried Müller and others had the great pleasure to celebrate Sylvine's 80th birthday last year with him in the Mainz Academy, and I was invited to speak there as well, and I compared Hittitology to a castle, where many scholars are very happy to work on the crenellations and put little flags on the top of the turrets. Sylvine worked in a different part of the castle. He was responsible for the foundations of Hittitology, and when many flags have disappeared and have changed, then Hittitologists will, for the foreseeable future and generations to come, work on what Sylvine has built with his concordance, which is not only a complete inventory of all Hittite cuneiform texts, but provides access to media, to photographs, to 3D models, provides access to text editions, and to a very comprehensive bibliography. And Sylvine's concordance is the foundation of all digital text edition projects, any digital projects that are run in connection to the Mainz Academy and the Hethitological Center that is located there. So it is very fitting that a conference on digital methods and tools is devoted to the memory of his work. Sylvine himself was not a coder, not an IT technician, but he saw the potential that the digitization brought to the kind of work he was doing and embraced it enthusiastically. So I wish you a very successful conference. I'm looking forward to the papers, and I would like to conclude on a more personal note. In 2016, together with Elisabeth Rieken and Gerfried Müller, we started a new Hethitological project in the Academy program of the Union of German Academies of Science, and this Hethitological long-term project was located in the Mainz Academy, where Sylvine at that time had been working for 30 years and was already in his 70s. And I will never forget how this scholar, whom we all admired and still admire, greeted us younger ones who came to and brought confusion to everything he was used to. He greeted us with great openness and with warmth. He supported our work every day and was an always accessible and generous advisor with all his experience and wisdom that he accumulated over working so many years on Hittite texts and in the Hethitology archive in Mainz. Whenever I was depressed by something, it was always good to meet Sylvine, who put it into context and was always able to cheer one up. And especially with his untiring curiosity for Hethitological research and his enthusiasm, untiring enthusiasm for cuneiform studies that inspired him to work to the very end of his life. Only weeks before his death, Sylvine still made entries in the concordance. It inspired him to leave us this wonderful heritage, and he and his work remain an inspiration for me, and I think for all colleagues who have the privilege of working with him in Mainz, or the many, many colleagues with whom he stayed in contact and worked with over the years, because he was at the center of Hethitology in Mainz and was the person who created and maintained the central tool of Hethitology over so many years. Thank you very much.